Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Everything is Bad New Fangled Motion Picture Show.
Welcome one and all to another episode of the New Fangled Motion Picture Show. I'm your host, Niall.
And I'm Nolan.
And today we're going to be reviewing the latest travesty to come out of Legendary Pictures. I think that's an appropriate.
Well, why even do a review now? We've just... Godzilla vs. Kong.
Yeah. So... we're gonna do a spoiler-free review. And I say, like, spoiler for the story. We are probably gonna talk about some of the fight scenes because you have to. But they're not it's not spoilers to tell you that Godzilla and Kong fight each other in the movie. So, there is kind of a spoiler for one of the fights, I guess. But anyway. So we might talk about the fights, but we're not going to spoil the story, what story there is, until we get to a certain point at which we will, but we'll warn you about it first.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. So, this movie is a freaking train wreck.
It's a mess.
It is awful.
All right. So, I remember for the previous one, Godzilla King of Monsters, the big complaint a lot of people had is you couldn't tell what was going on in the fights and the stuff. And actually, the kaiju fights are pretty good in this.
Right.
We'll give them that. The kaiju fights, you can tell what's going on. They're much easier to follow.
Yeah, it's cool. Lots of, like, slamming giant monsters into skyscrapers and stuff.
Yeah, cool visuals. Not great audio, though.
Yeah, so, in particular, the final climactic scene, there's a fight going on, and one kaiju punches another kaiju, and, like, we were sitting there watching, I was like, this feels weird. I feel disconnected from this somehow. I mean, beyond the fact that obviously I'm just watching a movie, because obviously this is fake.
Right.
But, you know, like, I felt this level of disconnection from it, and I realized when one kaiju hits another kaiju with, like, a powered-up punch thing, it didn't really sound like much.
Yeah, the background music is drowning out the sound effects in a lot of cases, and you just don't. It takes away from everything when you just don't get this real oomph behind a lot of it.
You know, you got these, like, what are they now, like 150 feet tall or something, right?
Yeah, I guess.
You got these, like, 150 foot tall giant monsters slamming each other into stuff, punching each other, biting each other. And, like, the roars are loud and stuff, but, like, the impacts just don't really have much of a oomph from them in the sound.
Yeah.
It's just, it feels weird because you look at some of the stuff and you're like, that would just be loud. Look how big that is. Look at all that shattering glass and all that falling debris. It would just be so incredibly loud. And it just doesn't feel that way in the fights. And so it feels weird. And it's like they just can't seem to get the balance of stuff right in these movies.
Yeah.
Like the first one, there was not enough kaiju fighting. So for the second one, they were like, dude, there's going to be so much kaiju fighting. Oh my gosh, we got Godzilla, we got Rodan, we got Ghidorah, we got Mothra, and they're all fighting, and so much fighting going on. But it's all going to be in, like, rainstorms and under the water and in blizzards and stuff at night. You can't see any of it.
Yeah. So this one, at least for the visuals and the fights, they fix all that.
And the fight choreography as well.
Yeah. So, visually speaking, the fights are cool. Audibly speaking, they're lackluster. And then the plot is so bananas. Like, I can't tell you
there.
Yeah. I mean, how many times was leading over to you like, what just happened? This was ridiculous.
Look, we get that in a Godzilla movie, the story's not gonna be great. But even with that consideration in there, there's stuff that just doesn't make sense. And there's stuff in there that's like, especially because it'd be one thing if this was like the first if like some of this stuff was going in like the first Godzilla movie in this new series, but we've established certain like rules and level of grounding for everything that's supposed to be going on,
Yeah.
already, and then some of this stuff you're just like, what?
I think story-wise, this is the worst of the ones they've come out with so far.
Easily. So, and there's a lot of stuff that you're like, well, that just doesn't make sense why they would even do that. So, like, this isn't a spoiler. This is in the first 5 minutes of the movie. But it starts out with this, with this Apex facility, right? It's this mega corporation, right? And they're doing research or whatever at this facility. And they're doing research on kaijus. And for reasons, they need, like, a nuclear reactor or whatever.
Which attracts Godzilla.
Right, because Godzilla, like, consumes the radiation. So you've got this facility doing kaiju research, and you know that Godzilla's attracted to the radiation. Godzilla, keep in mind, an amphibious creature. So where do you decide to put it, Nolan? Where would you put it? I know where I'd put it.
I would put it in, like, NORAD.
Yeah, like Cheyenne Mountain. Yeah, or, like, just, in the middle of the country.
Interior of the country.
Oklahoma or something, right?
Yeah,
No, they put it in Pensacola, Florida.
On
it's literally
water.
waterfront property.
It's on the water.
And I don't know what Hollywood thinks of the intelligence of Navy combat. What's the official term for fighter pilots in the Navy?
Aviators.
Yeah, I don't know what Hollywood seems to think about naval aviators, but they keep flying like point blank range to Godzilla to launch missiles at him, which makes no sense. And then Godzilla like swipes his tail at him and they blow up.
What happened to the like being able to target from like over the horizon and shoot missiles? That's sort of like one of the selling points of modern fighter craft.
And I mean, like, we've established very well that, the Mavericks and Sidewinders and whatever they're shooting at Godzilla are ineffective in other movies. And they just keep doing it in this one. I'm like, hey, you guys maybe want to try a bigger missile?
As a taxpayer, I'd be kind of pissed. Like, look at them waste all that money.
Right. Yeah, no, so it's like, this is just a lot of stuff that, like, okay, you can only turn your brain off so much on one of these movies.
This isn't even the worst of it, though.
No. The worst of it we can't really get into without it being a spoiler.
Spoil it. Well, so we'll talk about that in the spoiler section, but it is so much of it's just like, what?
It's a weird exposition.
Yeah.
Godzilla's naked. Anyway, no, it's weird exposition. That's the word I need to be using.
Mm.
And the background that they established with said exposition, you're just like, what? Are you serious right now? And yeah, we'll get into that in the spoiler part too. There's also some stuff that just doesn't make sense from like a geometry point of view. Right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about
Yeah, there's some stuff where you're just like, those angles don't work. I don't get what's going on here.
Also a geography point of view.
Right, also a geography point of view. But yeah, man, and like the tech level just shoots way the hell up in this.
Like it's tech level shoots up to a point where I was expecting them to introduce like, oh, by the way, we found this UFO.
Right. It's so
at some point, because you're like, whoa, when did this like tech come from?
Right, and they have like some pretty bizarro stuff in the other ones. Like there was that giant flying wing air fortress thing that was like, tailspin punted 100 years into the future or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And like every Osprey on the planet involved somehow. And you're like, okay, like, I could sort of be okay with this level of technology because we've sort of established it in the canon in this world. But then they make such a technological leap, and it's only been a few years, right, since the first Godzilla movie at this point.
Yeah.
In the story. And so it feels weird for the time scale. So that's another issue that's just like, yeah.
Yeah.
But I would not recommend seeing this movie, honestly. I mean, I get that it's like the only big blockbuster movie in theater right now. Unless your local theater is a Regal who finally decided to reopen and are showing like 5-month-old movies at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen people online that are enjoying it, but they seem to be people that are just diehard kaiju fans, and their focus point is they've completely ignored the story and they're just going in for the kaiju fights, which are fun to watch.
Yeah.
I'll admit that. As far as the kaiju fights go, it's pretty good. But all the framework surrounding those fights is just bonkers.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. If you really want a kick-ass kaiju movie, like cool kaiju fights to watch, just go rewatch Pacific Rim.
Yeah.
Save yourself the headache. Yeah, I think that's probably all we can really say. Oh, wait, no, there's one more thing that's not a spoiler that I will say was a major complaint from me. Godzilla doesn't do the roar.
He does.
So
he roars.
Roars, but you know that like high pitched. Here, you put it in here, Nolan.
Okay.
Yeah, like that Godzilla roar. You know that's he's known for that like metallic, like dragging a dumpster across a parking lot roar. That's like warbles and everything. I kept expecting it. You know, like, and they did it in the other movies. That's the weird thing to me. It's not like we've established that he doesn't do it in this one.
Right, he roars, but it's like they're underwhelming.
Right, and it just sounds like a animal roaring. Like you're like that's just an actual animal. That's just what an actual animal sounds like when they roar. You know, so you expected like, oh, Godzilla and Kong, they're squaring off in Hong Kong. That's not a spoiler. It's all over the trailers. They're squaring off in Hong Kong, and they're gonna do it. And Godzilla's like, or King Kong's like beating his chest and making giant monkey noises, whatever that entails. And Godzilla faces off and doesn't do it. Okay, and then like there's that part where Godzilla's got Kong on the ground. This is also in the trailer. It's not a spoiler. Godzilla's got Kong on the ground, is like yelling in his face, but it's literally just like the kaiju equivalent of like, ah!
Yeah.
It's so... It doesn't feel like a good Godzilla showing as a result. You know what I mean?
Right.
So... Yeah. That's, probably, like... one of my bigger complaints, because like it's so classical Godzilla. We watched last night. We were like watching a YouTube video of like Godzilla roars through the years.
It was like every Godzilla roar
there was, like,
from each movie or something.
Right. And it was like Godzilla's big roar from every movie, and there was one or two that were like he is in this movie, but almost all of them were basically the same. Like roar.
Yeah, and bigger.
I mean, they did it in the Matthew Broderick Godzilla movie, and they couldn't get it right in this one.
The roar for the Matthew Broderick Godzilla movie was better.
So, yeah, man. But anyway, is that all our non-spoiler stuff?
I think so.
Right. So, henceforth, our spoilers. You've been warned. That Hollow Earth thing, man.
So they've been talking the Hollow Earth thing since what, Kong Skull Island?
I think so.
And like, okay, they finally go to the Hollow Earth, and so it's this whole plot from, what was that company? Apex, right? So they're developing Mechagodzilla, and they need a bigger power source than what's available. They're like, I bet you there's a big power source in the Hollow Earth.
Which we know exists.
But have not been to. The reason they haven't been to it is because of the gravity shift tears whatever vehicle they've tried to send down there apart.
Yeah.
right? But they've developed something that should work,
I feel like they could have just launched a pod down there, right?
I guess. So they have now developed this hovercraft thing that can survive the trip, although like everyone inside like throws up from it, whatever. And for whatever reason, they're like, well, we're gonna need Kong to retrieve it for reasons.
To lead us to it.
I guess, for
that
reasons.
that was they needed Kong to lead them to it. They somehow assumed Kong would just be drawn to it if they got him down there.
Yeah, there's no basis for any of this.
Right. Which, I mean, it turns out that, like, the power source is in the home of the Kong people.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
We'll get to that in a minute.
So,
But there's literally nothing established that should have explained why Apex thought this was going to be the case. There's nothing to warrant the thought process.
So they convinced the Monarch researchers who are researching Kong, and for whatever reason they decided to enclose him in a bubble on Skull Island instead of just letting him run loose on Skull Island.
I think they sort of implied that that storm was permanent.
Oh. So yeah, some storm wiped out the natives there, and there's just this one little girl left. You've seen her in the trailer. She's the girl that
holds the doll up.
Has the doll, and she communicates with Kong through sign language because she's deaf.
She reaches out and touches his finger like E.T.
Yeah. But she teaches Kong sign language, so Kong
convenient.
Kong can communicate with anyone who knows.
Also, they go from
ASL.
They go from Kong has a basic understanding of some sign language to Kong is just fluent and can converse with you in sign language.
Right.
Very quickly.
Yeah.
They make that leap very quickly. Like, it starts out and she's all like communicating with her surrogate mother. Like, oh, he's, he's sad. And her mother's like, well, how do you, or I forget the woman's name, but the researcher sort of like adopted the little girl.
Yeah.
But she's like, how do you know he's sad? And she's like, he told me. And it shows Kong and he's making the sign for home. Mm-hmm. Right? Which is like a very basic, I mean, it's just like literally wrapping the side of your skull with your like semi-closed fist.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like a pretty basic gesture, and he's not communicating a lot of like depth of thought with that. And you're just like, oh, okay, he wants to go home. But like by the end of it, man, like they're straight up like signing whole ass sentences to him.
So somehow they communicate. There's a sign for Godzilla, which I gotta figure must actually just be spelling it out with the alphabet in reality. But it doesn't look like they're taking that much time to sign Godzilla. So what is the sign for Godzilla? I mean, all the sign language is subtitled.
Maybe it's just like Big Lizard or something.
I mean, all the sign language is subtitled, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, so they convince this researcher to like, hey, let's take Kong to Antarctica, where the only known tunnel to the Hollow Earth is. And they convince her on the notion that like, well, maybe it'd be better for him because that's where he's from. And
they have a couple of reasons for that. So they convince her that, well, that's where the kaiju are from. Or what do they call them in this?
Titans.
The Titans. That's where the Titans are from. So, that he'd be going home. But also, if we got Kong out of the picture, Godzilla would be the only like apex Titan left on the world, and maybe he'd stop attacking everything and being so angry.
Yeah. Because then
he doesn't have any
challenge.
They can like sense each other.
And they're just drawn to fighting each other all the time, I guess. Anyway, so they take him. And so they load him up on this tanker, on this the sort of barge that would block the Suez sort of ship, and they sail him south. But then you've seen in the trailer, Godzilla shows up. They fight.
They really mess up a Nimitz class carrier.
Yeah. They play dead. Godzilla leaves. They get Kong to Antarctica.
By lifting him up with a bunch of helicopters.
Yes.
Which are like, there's like 3 at least different helicopters in the array.
Like different models of helicopters.
And I'm just like, what a freaking nightmare that would be to load that up. But whatever.
Yeah, they rig up a net thing and carry him there. They drop him off at Antarctica.
Should have used balloons.
Yeah, like in the original King Kong versus Godzilla.
Yes.
So same thing. And then they sign to him that, hey, go down that hole. There might be more of your kind. So he goes charging off, and then they follow him in their hovercraft. And so they go down this like hole.
Well, let's talk about their hovercraft for a second.
Okay. Oh yeah, they're like Tron hovercraft, like
right.
just like neon everywhere.
And they like if you took the Jetsons like that. Those, like, O's that come off the engines on the Jetson cars.
Like the little, like, rings of, like, energy come out the back, yeah.
Yeah, and if you, like, translated that into, like, quote-unquote, like, real life, like, this is what that would look like.
Yeah,
and it's their little
weird. Their little propulsion things have those, like, the little pods that propel them. They have those coming out.
And we kept going, like, while they were flying during the movie. We couldn't help ourselves. It's so bizarre because this is one of the examples of where the technology jump that had like the technology level that had been established in the previous movies to this one is such a leap that it's wild.
Right. So Kong goes charging off down this tunnel, and then like that they at some point fall into this void, and then there's like this like piercing some sort of like barrier, and then suddenly they're in the hollow earth.
Well, hold on.
It was kind of confusing to watch.
Hold on, because and this is gonna play into something later that we're gonna talk about. But so they go in, and it's literally, I mean, it looks like a Stargate like force field that they fly into, right? And then they get this like light warping effect going on, and it looks like the end of 2001.
Yeah.
And because I leaned over and went, my God, it's full of stars when they came flying out the end of it.
It was like straight out of 2001.
And it's you're like, okay, weird, but
I just expected a literal tunnel.
Right, not a wormhole.
Right.
Or whatever this was, right? Okay, so they pop out on the hollow earth, right? Which isn't that hollow.
Turns out not so hollow.
Not so hollow.
So, and it's this like triple gravity thing going on. So the hollow earth, as I imagined, because as it had been described in like Victorian science fiction, the origins of this hollow earth theory are that, so you have the earth is a sphere, and then you have a hollow spherical cavity, and then inside that is a star.
A small star.
And then you would walk around on the surface
of the inside.
Without visuals, this is kind of difficult to explain.
But like yeah,
like, so if you reversed gravity.
Right, your feet are pointing back up towards the surface of the planet.
Right.
You know, so you're walking around like the, you know, like a space station wheel.
Yeah,
turning.
so if imagine in Halo, but it's spherical instead of a ring, just a ring.
Exactly.
That's, yeah. And so that's what the hollow earth theory is supposed to be. This instead also adds like another like small planet, not a sun, so I don't know where the light source is in this hollow earth.
Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, I don't know where the source of light and heat is in this. But if you imagine, what we just described, but instead of a sun, a small sun in the center, there's like another planet. And it's close enough that Kong can like climb a mountain and leap from one mountain peak to the other, reversing gravity on the way, and land on the other.
Now, unless maybe this just occurred to me, maybe what if
that's the way it appears to be from the movie.
What if it's like a pancake shaped cavity?
Okay.
Right?
We didn't consider that.
But we saw the curvature of the inside of the crust, right?
Did we?
Didn't we?
It's hard to tell, but if
this movie's hard to follow.
If it is in fact a pancake-shaped cavity, that could explain our complaint that we were...
Our geometry
complaint.
Right.
It could solve that problem. So, still no light source.
Right. Right.
But then there's it's a possibility that instead of what I just described, there's not like another planet floating around. It's just
a really flat
for reason I don't know why that would be a pancake shaped, but whatever. that could be.
I don't know why they wouldn't base their Hollow Earth sequence of events off of Journey to the Center of the Earth, but
Right. That's what I always thought it was gonna be like.
yeah.
But yeah, so it's very confusing to watch. It's so hard to follow what's going on. But so Kong climbs a mountain, leaps, gravity reverses again, lands on the other mountain.
The ships follow him.
Yeah, the ships follow him. There's 2 of them. They fight some monsters on the way.
They started out with 3. One gets destroyed by some other kaiju down there, which Kong takes out with the help of missiles from these ships.
Yeah, so then Kong is drawn to this, like, mountain with this big old door, and he goes inside, and it's like this King Kong throne room. And Kong's people apparently were at least advanced enough to understand basic architecture. They have arches and columns built there.
Like, I looked at it and went, it's the Lonely Mountain, but big.
Yeah,
for Kong.
That's what it looks
beings. Like. I mean, it looks like dwarven architecture from the Lord of the Rings movies.
Yeah, it's really weird.
Like these tall columns in this vaulted ceiling room and stuff. And this like stone throne in the middle. And then he finds a prop that not a MacGuffin, but still a plot device.
You saw it in the trailer. That axe thing.
Right, and it's like, oh, well, that's convenient that's there.
He sits on the throne Conan style.
Yeah. And so, picks the thing up, and he lays it down in this axe-shaped cavity in the floor.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing the axe was there, which activates the power source that Apex is after, which is convenient because they had no idea. Like, they were theorizing about this power source anyway, so they had no idea there was going to be an axe involved and all this other stuff. And it's just like, oh, well, that worked out well for them. Here's where it gets really stupid. Because it's not that stupid yet. It gets stupider.
Right. There are whole other levels of stupid.
So, the Apex people who are, like, the main, like, the Cuban guy who runs the company sends his daughter along with the expedition to make sure they get what they need. And they just, like, purposely write her to be the most unlikable person on the planet.
Yeah, so you don't feel bad when she dies.
Right. And so she, like, sends her little robot out that goes out and it goes, like, bzzz, and, like, cuts a little cylinder of this glowing stuff. Mind you,
like a core sample.
So, like, these people should all have instant cancer, by the way. I mean, they're all, like, adjacent to atomic breath throughout the movie, and there's, like, all this just stuff going on that you're like, oh, that would be so irradiated.
Right.
So, it like, cores out this little, like, cylinder, this, like, beer can shape of this glowing material, right? And you're like, oh, so they got their power source, they'll be able to power their Mechagodzilla, right?
Mm-hmm.
They'll send the robot, they'll put the robot back in the ship and send him back, and they'll power their Mechagodzilla.
No.
Nope. They download the data from the power source.
I can't get a good cell signal through,
like
concrete wall.
Yeah, like I couldn't get a cell signal in Dulles Airport because of where you go down into the security and there's concrete all around you.
But they send a signal through the Earth.
Right.
Through the Earth's crust.
Yeah, and so they download it and I guess like 3D print it or something.
Yeah,
they just fabricate it. And I'm like, if you had the means to just fabricate it, why did you need to go down here to retrieve it? It makes no sense because you had the exotic particles you needed to make this thing happen. It's just like they put so much effort into like trying to pseudoscience this stuff to just do that. It makes no sense from a story writing perspective.
Yeah. So then meanwhile,
yeah, while all this is going on,
back at the ranch,
Godzilla's in Hong Kong because he's sensed Mechagodzilla.
We'll get to why he senses Mechagodzilla
right.
in a bit. That's another subplot.
Right, and so he makes landfall in Hong Kong, and when King Kong put put the axe in the thing down in the the center of the earth. He felt that or whatever, and he goes, "Oh no, you didn't!" And he just starts atomic breath blasting a core through the earth, like a hole through the earth, right? Just boring it down.
Mm-hmm.
And so keep in mind, all right. So if what appears to be the case with the sphere inside the Earth's core, like was our original thing, so keep that in mind. Now they flipped back over and they're oriented like just on a lower level of the Earth, basically.
Right.
At that point.
Standing facing the same direction you would as if you were on the surface of the Earth.
Right. And then but Godzilla's boring a hole through the Earth's crust, and it comes out through the floor of the throne room.
Which might be why it's actually, like we said, a pancake-shaped.
Yeah.
Okay, so if that's the case, then this makes more sense in that regard. But the fact that Godzilla can just bore through the Earth, like halfway through the Earth, right? Like we are in the center of the Earth at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, so, it's pretty nuts.
And then it bores through, and Kong's like, "What the hell? Someone busted a hole through the floor of my new throne room." And he looks down, and like Godzilla's roaring from one end of the tunnel, and Kong's roaring from the other tunnel, and they're like yelling at each other.
And he picks up his axe.
And he goes diving down that tunnel.
So keep in mind, they went through a wormhole thing. Like I said, it literally looked like a Stargate portal.
Yeah.
And they had this whole 2001 time space warp thing going on. But then they just fly through this tunnel.
But now it's just a purely physical tunnel.
Right.
And in like no time, I guess gravity assisted, they just like get to
Hong Kong.
So now we have another, and that's where the big Hong Kong fights. And like I don't know whether there's anything left of Hong Kong after this fight. They trashed the place.
Yeah.
But now we have another subplot.
All right, we got to rewind back a bit.
Back to the beginning of the movie when
Godzilla
attacks.
So much going on in this movie.
So when Godzilla attacks the facility, the Apex facility in Florida, on the water, we have this. There's this one guy who is certain that Apex is doing some shady stuff, and he's got this podcast all about it and everything. So he's managed to like get a job there, and he's going to steal some secrets from them when Godzilla attacks. Now, I don't know if anyone's ever like pointed at this Apex robotics facility and gone, "Those are cooling towers for a nuclear power plant." Several of them.
Yeah.
But Godzilla destroys this place. So again, there should be some serious radiation all about.
Well, and there was like this glowing ball core thing that looked like a big version of one of the balls that attaches to GLaDOS and
I think that was the eye.
2.
I think that was one of the eyes for Mechagodzilla.
Yeah.
So anyway, and then the daughter of the monarch guy,
the girl from Stranger
yeah,
Things.
the guy, yeah, she was in the previous one too. She's the daughter of Kyle Chandler's character. She's also like really into this guy's podcast, and she and the New Zealander kid from Deadpool 2. So she and that kid join up with the conspiracy theorist guy, and they go to the Monarch facility, or not the Monarch, the Apex facility. And they accidentally get into one of these, not the same sort of hovercraft, a similar hovercraft, also decked out in Tron neon.
Yeah, they do the accidental stowaway trope.
Right, and so there is a tunnel from the Apex facility in Pensacola, Florida, through the planet to their facility in Hong Kong. And so they zoom, this, hovercraft zooms them down this tunnel, and they wind up in Hong Kong to witness a test on Mechagodzilla. And that's when we find out
security is very lax around something that should be,
right.
very high security.
Yeah, and it's in the the Apex arcology. It looks like the Tyrell building.
Yeah.
It's this big old pyramid up on a mountain or something in Hong Kong. But anyway, where was I at? Oh yeah, so that's where
Godzilla test.
Yeah, the Mecha Godzilla test. That's when we find out they're looking for the power source, but also this thing is powered, as we learn.
Controlled.
Not powered. Sorry, controlled, as we learn, through a psychic link. A pilot sits inside or just behind the skull of Ghidorah, yeah, the head that was lobbed off in the previous movie. So they have the skull, and so they explained that Ghidorah had a psychic connection. All three heads had a psychic connection to each other.
Right, because it would have taken too long to send a signal down one neck and up another for them to communicate.
I think,
which that's a level of pseudoscience I can deal with in Godzilla, because we know that the big dinosaurs had a hindbrain for controlling movement and stuff, because it would have taken too long to send the signal.
Was there also something in the previous movie about him using his psychic ability to control the other kaiju?
Dude, there might have been. I don't remember.
Yeah. Anyway, so using the psychic ability of the brain inside the skull, they're controlling Mechagodzilla.
They don't explain how there's anything in Mechagodzilla to receive the psychic
it doesn't
connection.
Matter. But that's what is drawing Godzilla. He's pissed off. He senses Ghidorah.
Right.
And that's what draws him there. That's what drew him to the Apex facility, presumably, and draws him to Hong Kong. But then, twist, Ghidorah,
once they get the power source.
Once they get the power source, Ghidorah takes control of Mechagodzilla and kills all the Apex people. And that's when the fight between where Kong and Godzilla team up to fight Mechagodzilla.
Mechagodzilla is so doofy looking.
Mechagodzilla's always been doofy looking.
I know, but you'd think they could have made him cooler for this movie.
I'm curious why they decided to go with a robot designed to look like Godzilla.
Right. I mean,
it could have looked like anything, right?
That's one of the it would have ended up looking like a Jaeger of some kind from Pac Rim, because
I mean that's always been my question from the original Mechagodzilla back in the 70s or whenever that movie came out.
And it's especially if you're gonna have someone who's psychically connected to the robot controlling it, wouldn't you want it to feel familiar in the way it moves to the pilot?
Yeah.
So you would want it to be humanoid, right? You would want it to be a Jaeger at that point.
Right. So I don't know. We have any more just crazy plot in this movie?
Bizarro shit.
They fight. They destroy Mechagodzilla. Kong and Godzilla they don't end on good terms, but they're I'm done fighting.
Yeah. There's not a post-credit scene setting up Gamera, which is incredibly disappointing.
Does Toho actually have rights to Gamera?
I don't know.
I think I read somewhere they bought whatever company had it, so maybe they do.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to see some bananas kaiju movies, Gamera.
Oh man, how he pulls his head and limbs into his shell and spins around and flies.
You ever see the one where it's a famous one from Mystery Science Theater where he goes to this other planet and he's fighting several kaiju and one of them is literally a dog in a suit.
No, that sounds awesome though. Oh man. But yeah, this movie's just the story's just such a mess. It's all over the place. I mean, when we were talking about it yesterday or earlier today, whenever that was, and we were basically just well, what it should have been is, Godzilla's pissed because he senses Kong about or whatever, and they're, Apex is working on Mechagodzilla, and it's just they're just building Mechagodzilla. They don't need like a weird special power source from the center of the earth or anything. And then like you have Godzilla and Kong team up to take out Mechagodzilla because how dare they?
Right.
Like
I mean, even
and that was really all that the plot it needed.
I could understand like needing the element of Ghidorah taking control because you need Mechagodzilla to be the bad guy.
Right.
So that's fine. I've seen weirder in Godzilla movies.
Sure.
But
yeah, the whole like center like Hollow Earth sequence was just so weird and bizarre and like it's the whole plot is such a mess. It's all over the place, and there's
a lot of
multiple
it didn't make
subplots going
sense.
on.
Yeah, and a lot of it was just like, well, why did that happen? Why? Things didn't always make sense. They're just like
even in the context of a dumb kaiju movie.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I definitely recommend avoiding this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got anything else to say on that?
No.
All right. So the next movie we're going to review is Nobody, which we, at time of recording this, we have already seen. But we go check out a review of that when that goes up. Probably, day after this goes up?
Probably.
So, but then I think the next movie after that is Mortal Kombat, which looks dumb, but well done dumb.
Yeah.
I wasn't a Mortal Kombat. Like, I didn't play Mortal Kombat growing up. I played Street Fighter at my friend's house, but I never really touched Mortal Kombat much. I know like half the characters' names, maybe, and I know the sweet ass theme song.
Yeah.
But I watched, and it was like I knew a new Mortal Kombat movie was coming out, and I was like, I mean, we'll probably go see it, whatever, right? And then I saw the trailer that came out a few weeks ago, and I was like, oh, I'm excited for this movie now. So it's either gonna be like a dumb movie, turn your brain off and just have fun watching this, or they just had the best trailer editor in Hollywood.
Yeah, I mean,
I've seen both.
I've seen that happen.
I've seen both. So we'll see. Hopefully, I'm hoping that it's just dumb fun. Apparently a lot of the people working on it were really into the games. Like, I was reading an interview with the guy who played Scorpion, and he was like, he's talking about how like the director and like the DP and some of the producers or something were on set for the day that he was doing like his first major fight scene, the one against Sub-Zero that's in the trailer, I think. And he throws, he does his move where he throws the chain at his opponent, and he says, "Get over here," and like pulls his opponent towards him. And he's saying that like when he said that line, the whole set cheered because they were just so excited to hear it.
Yeah.
And I go, that's awesome. I don't normally give a crap about Mortal Kombat, but I'm excited that these guys are excited about it. Yeah. So hopefully it's rad. We'll see.
Yeah. So, yeah. I have high hopes for it.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's
I'll say one thing about the Kong Godzilla versus Kong is that I was disappointed in it.
Yeah.
Cuz it's not like I had high hopes for it, but I was like, it looks decent. It looks like it's going to be fun. Looks like it's going to be better than, the previous one, King of the Monsters, which I think was until this one came out was the worst one. I actually liked Kong Skull Island.
I thought
that was actually pretty good.
Do you think this movie was worse than King of the Monsters?
I think the plot was worse than King of the Monsters. I think the fights were better than King of the Monsters.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. But then the next movie we have coming up after Mortal Kombat should be Wrath of Man, which is the new Guy Ritchie movie, which I'm I'm a little bit worried about.
It looks like a departure from stylistically.
Right. The thing is, like, Guy Ritchie has such a style. Like, when The Gentleman came out and those trailers came out, before I even saw Guy Ritchie's name on the screen, I was like, this is a Guy Ritchie movie. Same thing with like the Sherlock Holmes movies and that King Arthur movie. You know, like, just the way the dialogue is delivered from everyone and the banter and stuff. You're like, this is a Guy Ritchie movie. But that Wrath of Man, like, it looks cool, but the trailer just didn't make it feel like a Guy Ritchie movie. So, we'll see. I mean, I like Guy Ritchie. Snatch is one of my all-time favorite movies ever. So, we're definitely still going to go see it. I'm just a little worried. I mean, it might still be good, but you kind of have certain expectations from Guy Ritchie.
Right.
So, but yeah, so that's what we got coming up. So check those out when they come out, I guess. The Nobody review should be up very soon.
All right. Well, bye.
Toodles. Play us out, Godzilla.